Honourable Presiding Member, I take this opportunity when the 2020 Appropriation Bill is being presented in Parliament, first to say that it's a very unusual situation in which at the end of a year an appropriation bill is being presented. We must not forget that we had a president in this country after the election on November 16th. And that president had the opportunity to actually present a budget in this parliament, and he did not make use of that opportunity. Often the excuse that is being made that there was a minority government, but there have been minority governments across the world in which budgets have been presented and parliamentary processes have been followed. This president could not do so. In 2015, we were a minority government. But with the understanding of the opposition, we were able to actually present a budget, get it passed, and carry out what we had got approved from Parliament. It's not only that, there were constitutional provisions that even if Parliament has been dismissed, that the President could, under special circumstances, reconvene Parliament for an emergency. He did not even use that provision. And therefore, the constitutional question arises that there was a vote on account from January to April. There was a vote on account subsequently when this parliament was elected. But the constitutional question is that from the 1st of May till August, for the 4 months, expenditures were incurred, incomes were received by the government, borrowings were made. But how are these legal or constitutional? But I'm not going to deal with the constitutional or legal issues. But from the point of view of a political philosophy, parliaments in a republic have two main functions. And the two main functions are, firstly, it's to legislate, and secondly, it's to approve finances. In a republic, you cannot even raise a rupee from a citizen without the approval of Parliament. This is the first time in the 72-year history of a free independent Sri Lanka that a situation like this has arisen. And therefore, I would like to make a note of it, that it will not be repeated under any circumstances. We parliamentarians have the primary responsibility, not to the executive of the country, but we have the responsibility to the people, because the people are sovereign in a republic. We have been elected by them. And it is our duty to stand by the Constitution and to protect the freedoms and the rights of the people. And therefore, I am hoping that this precedent will never be followed again. Presiding Member, we also here, I would like to very briefly look at the question about the income that has been raised. Tax revenues are the primary source of income. Income tax, excise tax, VAT, NBT, cess and PAL. These taxes have come down if you take revenues in general. But government has made changes since December 2019 up till now. But these changes should have been followed with legislation. But where is the legislation? In the Acts, only the VAT rate can be changed because it is provided in the Act. No other rates can be changed without the approval of Parliament. But even on VAT, the threshold cannot be changed because the Act does not permit for the threshold to be changed, only the VAT rate. Therefore, revenues have also dived because of the political exigencies that arose during the elections. These revenues have come down. Income tax has come down by 32%, import duties by 9%, special commodity levies have gone up by 10%, and import duties by 9%, income tax by 32%. What does this show? What this shows is that the taxes on the poor have gone up, commodity taxes have gone up, transport taxes have gone up, but the taxes on the rich have come down because income taxes have come down. We must state that we do not approve of this state. We were in a situation when we took the office, a situation of consolidation, fiscal consolidation. the revenues in this country had dropped to about 10 to 10.5% of GDP. We went for fiscal consolidation, and by 2018, it had exceeded 13% of GDP. Even India is about 18% of GDP. We are the lowest in the region. I don't even want to talk about Europe and the Scandinavian countries, where revenue is maybe 40, 50% of GDP. But even by South Asian standards, we are the lowest. And in 2020, it will dip to 8 or 9% of GDP. Whenever revenues drop, the poor are under pressure. Revolutions happen because of that. And therefore, every government has a responsibility to make sure that revenues come in so that basic services, the pangs of hunger, could be addressed, that people don't come onto the streets. There are the first signs of that, and government must be quick to address that. The rich need to be taxed so that the poor shall live, that all of us can live in harmony. We need a more equal society. And taxation's one important thing on taxation is that there will be more equity in the system. The government has failed in terms of generating incomes. If you take expenditures, my question is, how have these expenditures been incurred? How have they been incurred? That is a question I would like to ask. I would like also to go into the question of borrowings, which is the other factor. Parliament has to approve the borrowing limit. As we see from the appropriation bill, borrowings have gone up. But I could argue from the appropriation bill, or the Ministry of Finance has given statistics more recently of January to July, revenues, expenditures and borrowings, and compare it in the same period of 2019 to see what has happened. Borrowings have gone up during these months. It has gone up from by rupees billions 1,230. If I put it another way, 5.8 billion rupees per day. Borrowings have gone up. And if you look at these borrowings in terms of the GDP was rupees 15 trillion in 2019. Today we hear from the Minister of Finance that GDP is going to be 16 trillion in 2020. How can that be? We are heading for a negative growth in this country. How can the GDP go up? And these playing with the data is dangerous, because the government has not even released the growth figures for the second quarter and the third quarter. Even countries like Indonesia have released their third quarter data figures. And the reason the government is not releasing it is because technically, when in 2 quarters the growth is negative, that country is officially declared to be in recession. And that's probably the reason that the government is not doing it. It is foolish, because investors understand what's happening, not just in Sri Lanka, across the world. And therefore, having honest data, releasing it on time, is actually to our benefit as a country. And if you look at it like that, if you look at it with the GDP figures of 2019, and you take the same GDP figure, don't even discount it, then our borrowings will be about 95% of GDP. If we continue to grow at that rate, by the end of December, borrowings will be 100% of GDP. A manipulation of data will not help at all. And therefore, we must take notice of this so that we are able to get our country out of the present rut and the present problem that it is in. මට මම මේ විවාදය අහගෙන ඉන්නකොට මට අහන්න ලැබුණ හුඟක් වෙලාවට පසුගිය රජය මොනවද කළේ, ආර්ථිකයට මොනවද කළේ කියලා. මේක පසුගිය රජය කරපු දේවල් මට කියන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් අද අපි මූණ දෙන ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්නය විශාල ගැටලුවක්. ලංකාවේ ඉතිහාසයේ අඩුවෙන්ම වර්ධනය, ඍණ වර්ධනයක් තියෙන්නේ. මේ රජය පළවෙනි කාර්තුවේ 1.6කින් ආර්ථිකය ඍණ වර්ධනයක් තිබුණා කියලා කිව්වා. මේ කාර්තුව ගත්තොත් 17කට 18කට ලං වෙන්නට ඕනේ. මුළු අවුරුද්ද එක එක රපොත්තු වෙනවා 5යි 10යි අතර කියලා සඳහන්
Honourable
කරනවා.
member, you have 2 more minutes.
ස්තුතියි. ඒ නිසා මේකට අපි මූණ දුන්නේ නැත්තම් මේක වහගෙන කරන්නට බෑ. මූණ දීලා කරන්න ඕනේ. ඇහුවා මොනවද අපේ රජයේ කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. විශාලම වාරි මාර්ග ක්‍රමය හැදුවා. මොරගහ කන්ද කළුගඟ ඩොලර් බිලියන 1.5ක් අපි වියදම් කළා. හම්බන්තොට මාතර අධිවේගී මාර්ගය හැදුවා. බෙලියත්තේ දුම්රිය මාර්ගය හැදුවා. මධ්‍යම අධිවේගී මාර්ගයේ පටන් අරගෙන 3න් එකක් විතර කරලා තියෙනවා. ජල සම්පාද ව්‍යාකෘත විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් කළා. උතුරු නැගෙනහිර ඔබතුමාම දන්නවා යටිතල පහසුකම් දීවර වරායන් මලියද්දී මේවා අපි හැදුවා. බහුවිධ සේවා මධ්‍යස්ථාන හැදුවා. නිවාස දහස් ගණන් හදලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම වෛද්‍යා පීඨ තොරතුරු තාක්ෂණ පීඨ එන්ජිනේරු පීඨ අලුත් ඒවා ඔබතුමාන්ලා දැන් විවෘත කරන දේවල් අපි පටන් ගත්තේ. රජයේ සේවකයන්ගේ වැටුප් දෙගුණයක් කළ අපේ කාලය තුලදී. විශ්‍රාමිකයන්ගේ වැටුප් දෙගුණයක් කළ අපේ කාලය තුලදී. 2020 ජනවාරි මාසේ ඉඳලා 2016 2019 විශ්‍රාම වුණ අයට දෙන්න තුන වැඩිවීමත් ඔබතුමන්ලා නතර කළා. සමෘද්ධි සහන ආධාරය දෙගුණයක් කළා. සමෘද්ධිය ලබන සංඛ්‍යාව ලක්ෂ 5කින් වැඩි කළා. සෞඛ්‍ය සේවාවේ කාච දුන්නා, ස්ටෙන්ට් දුන්නා, ඖෂධ මිල පහලට ගෙනාවා. පිළිකා රෝගීන්ට තිබුණ සීමාව වියදම් සීමාව අපි අහක් කළා. අධ්‍යාපනයේ ළඟම පාසල හොඳම පාසල යටතේ යටිතල පහසුකම් හැදුවා. මගේ ආසනේ හැම පාසලකම පාහේ යටිතල පහසුකම් අපි හැදුවා. ඒ විතරක් නෙමෙයි මේ රටේ ශිෂ්‍යයන් ලක්ෂ 45කට සුරක්ෂාවක් අපි ලබා දුන්නේ අපේ රජයයි. ගම්පෙරළිය හරහා පාරවල් පාසල් ආගමික සිද්ධස්ථානවලට විශාල මුදල් ප්‍රමාණයක් අපි වෙන් කරලා තිබෙනවා. ඉතින් මෙතනින් ඇහුවා මොනවද අපි මේ අවුරුදු 5 තුල කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා.
Honourable member, your time is up. Please wind up.
මේ සඳහන් කළේ මට ලබා දුන්න කාලය ගැන මම ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා.